August 1st, 1969, the eyes of the Catholic world were fixed on Uganda, and for the first time in history, a reigning pope had come to Africa. At Kololo airstrip, thousands stood in silence as Pope Paul VI ordained bishops for the growing church in Uganda. Among them knelt a humble priest from the hills of Kigezi, Father Banabas Rugwizangonga Halerimana. As the Holy Father laid his hands upon him, few could have imagined the weight that rested on those shoulders. And for a while the church was celebrating, Uganda itself was standing at the edge of one of the most turbulent chapters in its history. 3 years earlier, on 17th April 1966, the Diocese of Kabale had been created from the Diocese of Mbalala. It was a young diocese full of promise, but still laying its foundations. The missionaries had planted the seed. Now the responsibility of nurturing that seed was passing to local leadership. Bishop Banabas Halerimana became first indigenous residential bishop of Kawale. The mitre he received was not merely a symbol of honor, it was a call to build, a call to unite, a call to shepherd God's people through times that no one could yet foresee. Back home, the people of Kigezi welcomed their new bishop with joy. He was one of their own, he understood their language and knew their customs. He had walked the same steep hills, prayed in the same village churches, and served at the altar as a young boy in Mutolere parish. There was an old saying in Kigezi that a good shepherd must know every path his sheep walk. Bishop Halerimana already knew those paths, but history was about to test every shepherd in Uganda. Barely 18 months after his episcopal consecration, the country changed dramatically. In January 1971, the government of President Milton Obote was overthrown in a military coup led by General Idi Amin Dada. For ordinary Ugandans, uncertainty became part of daily life. Fear spread across the nation, institutions weakened, families worried about tomorrow. Yet every Sunday, church bells continued to ring across Kigezi. Children still walked to catechism, priests still celebrated Mass, and somewhere along the winding roads of the diocese, Bishop Halerimana continued making pastoral visits, confirming the faithful, encouraging priests, and reminding Christians that Christ remains present even when nations tremble. He understood something profound. Governments rise, governments fall. But the mission of the church must continue. Rather than allowing the diocese to stagnate under the weight of national uncertainty, he quietly expanded it. One parish after another began taking shape. By the time he retired, 13 new parishes had been established under his leadership. Each parish was more than another church building. It was a sign of hope, a declaration that faith would continue to flourish despite the storms surrounding the nation. Every new parish meant that Eucharist was brought closer to families, and every parish became a center for prayer, education, reconciliation, and community life. While newspapers carried stories of political upheaval, Bishop Halerimana focused on building something that would outlive every government. To people, he knew that a growing church needed priests. He strengthened St. Paul's Seminary and St. Adrian's Seminary, ensuring that young men responding to God's call received solid spiritual and academic formation. Many of the priests serving the diocese today are fruits of that vision. His concern extended beyond the sanctuary. He saw education as one of the church's greatest ministries. A school was not simply a place to learn mathematics or English. It was where values were formed and where future leaders discovered integrity and where faith shaped character. Bishop Halerimana encouraged Catholic schools throughout the diocese, believing that educating a child was one of the most powerful ways to transform society. Then came another difficult chapter. The fall of Idi Amin in 1979 did not immediately bring peace. Uganda entered another period of political instability. Governments changed, conflict continued in different parts of the country, and the early 1980s brought fresh uncertainty. Yet through it all, Kabale Diocese remained remarkably focused. Its bishop refused to be distracted from the mission entrusted to him. Perhaps that was his greatest strength. He never confused the work of the church with the politics of the day. Instead, he built institutions capable of serving generations, and his leadership was soon recognized beyond the diocese. Between 1982 and 1986, he served as president of the Uganda Episcopal Conference. These were years when the Catholic bishops frequently reflected on the moral responsibility of leadership, justice, reconciliation, and peace in a country longing for healing. While carrying national responsibilities, Bishop Halerimana never lost sight of Kabale. The diocese remained his family, its priests, its religious, its catechists, its schools, and its ordinary faithful. Those who worked closely with him remember a bishop who carried authority with remarkable simplicity. He traveled extensively, listened patiently, and corrected gently. He believed that before a bishop speaks, he must first hear the heartbeat of his people, and visitors expecting a distant church leader often encountered a father, one who smiled easily, one who remembered names, one who preferred conversation over ceremony. When relative stability gradually returned to Uganda after 1986, Kawale Diocese was ready, not because prosperity had suddenly arrived, but because its foundations had already been carefully laid. The parishes were growing, seminaries were producing priests, schools were educating children, communities were maturing in faith, and the diocese had not merely survived difficult decades, it had grown through them. And after 25 years of episcopal ministry, Bishop Banabas Halerimana retired in July 1994. He handed over a diocese far stronger than the one entrusted to him in 1969. History often celebrates those who make the loudest speeches, but the church remembers those who quietly build lasting foundations. On the 3rd of January 2016, Bishop Banabas Halerimana died at Nsambya Hospital. Today, as Kabale Diocese marks 60 years of God's faithfulness, it also celebrates men like Bishop Banabas Halerimana. When we see thriving parishes across the hills of Kigezi, and when we see priests serving with dedication, when we hear children singing in schools, when we witness a diocese alive with faith, we are also witnessing the harvest of seeds planted by a bishop who believed that no political storm is greater than God's promise. His generation experienced coups, fear, uncertainty, national upheaval, yet he chose not to build monuments to himself, he built the church. And perhaps that's why 60 years after the birth of Kabale Diocese, the story of Bishop Banabas Halerimana is not simply remembered. It is still being lived in every parish bell that rings across Kigezi, in every vocation that answers God's call, in every Christian whose faith was strengthened because one humble shepherd chose to remain faithful when the nation needed hope the most. He was not merely an episcopate, It was a ministry of quiet courage. And in the history of Kawale Diocese, that quiet courage continues to echo through the hills he lived.